live forever. You gotta love each other. Say you gotta live on forever. Yeah. And love one another. Boy,
The topic of the program tonight is that the PPP is governing like thugs. They're governing like thugs. It is the title of my column in Village Voice this weekend. And I am making the point that these people are governing like thugs. And of course, that has consequences. That has consequences for the larger politics. Look, there are some developments that we've got to pay attention to. One development is that more and more people are who enabled the PPP last year. Many of them helped to put the PPP into office. And some of them have now begun to come out against the PPP and what they're doing. The most recent, of course, is former ambassador. He was in charge of Go Invest during the PPP time in office. Jeff De Silva came out today, Stabrook News, reports that former PPP government official Geoffrey De Silva has expressed concern that the current administration is proceeding on the same corrupt trajectory as its predecessor. De Silva, who has written a series of letters to the press in recent months on a wide range of topics, including good governance, corruption, race relations, and the oil economy, cited a number of troubling occurrences in a missive yesterday to Sunday Stabrook. Among those were that under the current PPP government, the beneficial owners of the Kanji and Kaitro oil blocks have not been revealed, and the review of the Piara oil project has not been published. He said that a new company whose owner is related to a very senior official has been given infrastructure contracts. De Silva, who served for a long period under the PPP as head of Go Invest, noted that some procurement bids were withdrawn and resubmitted a number of times. He did not cite a specific example, but this has occurred in the agriculture sector with sheep islands. De Silva also served as Minister of Trade. He said that contracts have been awarded to unqualified persons with political connections. The last Sunday, Stabrook carried a report on the continuing questions surrounding the award of a school building contract, a company comprised of a DJ and football promoters. De Silva, who had a stint as Guyana's ambassador to Venezuela, also contended that some political appointees have been hired based mainly on party loyalty and not also on merit. That is, their integrity, ability, talent, effort, and achievements. Pointing out that it is challenging to direct and prove corruption, De Silva listed some red flags that will help to detect corruption. He says a purchase order or contract is awarded to a particular supplier or contractor who does not have the experience, the required facilities and resources. 2, some legal requirements and regulations are bypassed. 3, goods and services are purchased that are not necessary or appropriate for the institution to successfully function. 4, goods or services are not delivered or they are substandard. 5, there are no documents to support unusually high fees, commissions, and other expenses. 6, the supplier or contract is urgently requesting advance cash payments. 7, a supplier or contractor wants payments to be made to a person or company other than his or her company. 8, there are close connection links through family members, relatives, friends, and associates between a particular official and the supplier or contractor who insists that other staff should not be present in meetings to discuss the contract. 9, some qualified supporters and contractors are not chosen because of their race, ethnicity, gender, age, or class. 10, expenditures for travel expenses and hospitality are not backed up with receipts and other support. He went on, the priority for Parliament's Public Accounts Committee should be to promote the passage of the existing draft legislation to reward whistleblowers and protect them from unjustified retaliation. The perception of hypocrisy on fighting corruption is a powerful instrument that could make or break a government. This is Jeffrey De Silva, who is alerting the rest of us. These red flags under the party that he was once a member or supporter, but he worked for them. And he is now drawing to our attention that corruption, especially as it relates to audit, to do that audit on the $9 billion. We have Schuman, the deputy speaker, coming out against the government on a whole host of issues. And what is the significance of these people coming out? Our first response is going to be, well, we don't want to hear from them because they help to put the government in power. They have to put the government in power. So we don't want to hear from them. I would advise against that. It is important for us to hear from them because they help to strengthen our case. We've been saying from day one that the PPP is a corrupt government, that it's a government that doesn't concern about any rule of law. We have been saying it now. People from within their camp, or some of these people may argue that they're not in their camp, but they supported them. They supported them coming to power. And now 15 months later, these people are coming out against them. Another one, Alan Fenty, who writes a Friday column in the Stabrook News. Every week, Alan Fenty for the last year has been bigging up this government, has been talking about how the election was rigged by the PNC, and this government is the best thing since sliced bread. In his column this past Friday, he says, my simple question for myself and all citizens interested, is the 15-month government showing any gratitude? Let me read that. Alan Fenty, who helped use this column to help put this government in power, been defending them. Here is what he wrote on Friday. I quote him, the piece was coincidental with my thought processes assessing how the Ali Jagdeo victors are showing regard for international support garnered last year. My simple question for myself and all citizens interested is this: is the 15-month government showing any gratitude? Does it have to? Continue with Fenty. Put another way, my wonderment is grappling to process whether the PPP, as it goes about consolidating authority, then power, is conscious about how CARICOM and the wider geopolitical world is assessing its stewardship since the 2020 solidarity extended. Now, note, he says CARICOM and the geopolitical world gave the PPP solidarity last year. We know it was more than solidarity, but Mount Open Story jump out. And he's admitting that international forces helped the PPP to come to power. Now, we have been saying that. Now their own enablers are saying it. And they feel the PPP doesn't care. It got CARICOM support. It got the wider geopolitical world support. And now it's consolidating power. So, Fenty, De Silva, Truman, Chris Ram, and many others, after 15 months, they're realizing what we did last year might have been a mistake. No, they're not saying that. They're not saying it's a mistake, but they're saying the government is not governing properly. That is why I say that this government is governing like a set of thugs. Thugs don't care who helped them and who didn't help them. All they care about is to wreak havoc, and what the outcome is going to be, let it be. That's how thugs operate. Thugs don't reason. Thugs don't concern whether you're friend or family. The PPP is engaged in thuggishness, has been engaged from day one. It spent the first couple of months in power, chasing down Lowenfield and other people at GECOM, charging them, jailing them. It called out soldiers and sent them to West Bobis against people protesting. It covered up the murder of those boys. Is that let loose the SWAT team. It is engaging economic violence against public servants, other people who they perceive to support the opposition. When you give public servants a 7% increase, it is really a decrease. It's a minus zero. That is economic violence against public servants. When you give $250,000 to a set of workers who support you and give nothing to other workers who don't support you, that's economic violence and economic thuggishness. Only a thug will be conscious of the ethnic environment that we live in, will be conscious that people are charging them of racism, and yet in the face of those charges, you're going to give $250,000 to one group and give zero to the other group. That is economic thuggishness. Only a thug government would decide not to audit $9 billion and let money go down the drain like that, because they are front companies. You heard De Silva, he went through, he said, these are the red flags. The PPP got front companies in the oil industry. That is a small place, and we know that. Then you're right, I forgot Chris Glenal, who turned this paper, used this paper to help to defend the PPP and bring them to power. Glenal is still my partner, but he parted company with me and Lincoln because we did not go along with the narrative that the PPP won the election. He stuck out his paper neck for the PPP. No, he's crusading against the PPP. Their own enablers. Forget about we. They can say we are anti-government. Their own enablers. The Stabrook News, which up to this day refuses to carry any critique of the 2020 election that is not in line with their view that the PPP won the election. They're running editorials now every week, criticizing the PPP for what it's doing. Look at the thuggishness that the PPP has engaged in for 15 months. And these entities, these persons, they enabled the PPP to come to power, and they were muzzled. They're accusing the opposition of saying the PPP was installed. It's not the opposition who said the PPP was installed. The word installed was used by the American State Department. And we know that the Americans helped enable the PPP to come to power. And it's they who said it was an installed government. Because they know something about politics. When you have an election that is was as contested as the 2020 election, where both major parties said we have evidence that the other one's thief. It's a contested election. And the Americans know that any government that arises from a contested election is an installed government. It's not an elected government. The Americans knew that. They know that. But the Americans' position is that we do what we have to do. We help a government to power that we feel is going to look after our interests better. But we know that's an installed government. But if Kaito News and Stabrook News and all the others would have us believe that this was a legally elected government. It was not. It's not. An elected government comes out of elections in which both sides agree that the government was fairly elected. All the anomalies, all the thing that came out of the recount, it's there, the evidence is there. GECOM has the evidence. Why do you think Nandalal, in his so-called electoral reforms, no reform about the voters list, no reform on people who live outside and can vote in Guyana's elections, no reform about multiple voting, no reform about people who are working on election day and how they vote. You got 20 people in a district who are working on election day, but you get 50 of them vote. Where the extra 30 come from? None of those things Nandalal dealt with. All the anomalies that were unearthed during the recount, none of those. What is the penalty, Nandalal? What is the penalty for somebody in charge of a polling station and there is no statutory document in the box? What is the penalty for that? Nandalal didn't put that in his electoral reform. The police said people who voted were not in the country. What is the penalty for that, Anil? No, Anil didn't deal with that. Anil not interested in that. Anil decided that the PNC people are accused of certain electoral crimes, and he wants to pass legislation to give life sentence for these crimes that he said the PNC people carry out. What about the crimes that your people are alleged to have carried out? What about the 47 boxes? What is the penalty to have boxes without statutory document? Those boxes weren't found in Buxton or Pleasance or Golden Grove or Anns Grove or Denhamstel or Belladrum or Oaktown. They were found in One Repose and other areas that are partial to you, Anil Nandalal. No, those are not crimes. So in an election in which both sides said we have evidence of fraud, how can you award that election to a government, to a party, sorry, one of the parties, and say it's free and fair, the Americans got it right. The Americans agree we gave the election to one of them, but the government was not elected. It was installed. The Americans are straight up. All the others said the government was elected. And their elected government, they're now saying is corrupt. Their elected government, they're now saying they're not engaged in good governance. No. We've been saying that before the elections were called. We were saying once you have a contested election and you award it to one side or the other, you are giving that side license to do whatever they want, because they are going to say, the Americans say, we are the right governors. The Chamber of Commerce said we are the right governors. Chris Ram said we are the right governors. Stabrook News say we are the right governors. Kaitor News say we are the right governors. The Commonwealth said we are the right governors. CARICOM say we are the right governors. The Canadians say we are the right governors. And since all of them say we are right, it means the other side is wrong and we have a wide mandate. Never mind we got 50% of the vote. We get 100% of the power brokers. The PPP then sees its mandate not from the 50% that they said they get. The mandate came from the fact that important voices, important regional organizations, important international organizations said they win. And if the Americans and Canadians and Europeans and CARICOM and Commonwealth and OAS say we win, then we get 100% mandate. And any government that perceives itself having such a wide mandate is going to govern like thugs. No regard for the law, no regard for the opposition, no regard even for the people who helped them to get into power. No regard for anybody. Insensitive, thugs. And so what they did, the international community, CARICOM, the Chamber of Commerce, the media, what they did last year is that they helped to install a sub-government, and then they enabled them for an entire year. And now, like Judas, some of them, they're pretending that all the things that the government is now doing, it's based on some bad governance. No, it's not. The logic of installing a government in an election that was so contested is what you get now. The hatred for people like me, Lincoln Lewis, the hatred for us by the PPP and their enablers is that we were critical of the coalition. We were. We supported the coalition. My party was part of the coalition. But I'm not a political thug. Which means that if I see wrong, it doesn't matter whether it's a government that I support. If I see wrong, I will call it out. And I did that. And the coalition punished me. They punished Lincoln. But when it came to the election and we saw what was happening, we said, no, we are not going to go along with your narrative that the coalition rigged the election. In my case, I said, let me wait and see the evidence. At one point, I said, look, you all don't worry about this election. Just call this election off. I used the flowery language. I said, discard those boxes. What I meant was, look, you all forget about this election. Call it a draw. And you all form an interim government. Let it run for 3 years. I suggested that Granger should be the president and whoever the PPP should be the prime minister. They cussed me out for that, but I didn't care who was the president or the prime minister. All I was saying is that you have a joint government. And let the joint government repair the country. The PPP by itself can't repair the country. The PNC by itself can't repair the country. If they could have done it, they would have done it. One was in there for 28 years. The other was there for 3 years, for 23 years. The other one come back for 5 years. And they've not repaired the country. So try something new. And you all have an opportunity now. Because both of you all say the election thief. So forget about the election, call it a draw, or an inconclusive election. GECOM has the authority to do that. That is what Lowenfield recommended. He said after the recount, all the anomalies I see, I can't determine a winner. So Vincent said, I said, well, if there's no winner, call it a draw and put both of them, give them half and half, the government. And together, you all repair the country. You all repair the elections machinery, repair the police force, do it together. So there's no issue here of discrimination. You all determine how much together, determine how much public servants must get, repair industrial relations. That's what we asked for. To this day, I have not said the coalition won. I was a candidate for the coalition. Many coalition supporters believe the coalition win, right? That's them. I don't have a problem with people believing that their party win. But I don't know who win. The election was inconclusive. The recount order showed clearly that the PPP was engaged in shenanigans before election day. The recount order established that. The court decided not to use it, and they said, let it go to a petition. The court was being disingenuous. Because when the PPP said they see Mingo do something, Mingo mistabulate, he used spreadsheet. When they went to the court should have tell them, as they would normally would tell parties, come back to us with a petition. But no, the court entertained the PPP. And that is what caused the 5 months. It's not the coalition that caused the 5 months. If a party see rigging in our system, that party wait until after the election and use it as an evidence of petition. That's how we operate in Guyana and the English-speaking Caribbean. No, the PPP said they saw rigging, and they went to the court. And the court initially said, go back and correct what you're doing, what you see wrong. The court tells GECOM, correct what you see wrong. Mingo changed what he was doing. The PPP and his henchmen then invade the commission office, and at that point they break the election up. They broke up the election. The question is why they break up an election that they were so certain that they had won and they had seen fixin. They break up the election and then go to court, and the court entertain them. And then Granger allow them to suck him into the recount order. They allow him to, they suck him in. His own people tell him don't go down that road. Because there were 10 results from the 10 regions, which had to go to GECOM for validation. But Granger went along with the recount order. He should not have. But the recount order threw up the unexpected. The recount order showed the PPP rigged before election day. The court then, instead of using that recount results to arrive at a determination, they decided not to. Now, I'm an institution man. And so, one has to go along with what the court ruled, but I think the court acted badly. They did not read the political situation, or they ignored it. You see, the law doesn't exist in a vacuum. It doesn't. The law doesn't exist in a vacuum. The law is part of the wider society. And the court, being conscious of a disputed election, should have acted differently. I disagree with the court in that way. The appeal court made the fundamental point that so long as you had a recount and the recount had certain rules, then you are changing the meaning of a valid vote. A non-valid vote is usually a spoiled vote. But now the recount order was saying a non-valid vote is much more than a spoiled vote. Because you're going into those boxes to figure out how the votes got into the boxes, what kind of votes they are in the boxes. And you went into the boxes and you're saying, in effect, that votes in a box with no statutory documents cannot be valid votes. Votes in a box by people who are not in the country on the day of voting is not a valid vote. And the appeal court said, valid votes, the recount order, changed the meaning of a valid vote. The CCJ disagreed. I'm saying they all were enablers of the PPP coming to power. The Americans were the only honest one who said, we helped them to come to power, but they're not elected. They were installed. All the others said, oh, the court said they win. The court did not entertain all the evidence at its disposal. The court did not entertain the evidence of the recount order. Did not. It did not. The court ruled on forms, not essence. And so they installed a thug government. Thug government. And the PPP is governing now like thugs. And some of them, like my friend Chris Ram, like Mr. De Silva, like Dalal, like Schumann, at least they've decided to come clean and said this is a set of thugs that we have helped to put. Now they haven't walked back their narrative that the government was elected. They haven't walked that back. But they're saying this elected government is behaving like thugs. So where does that leave us? As I said, do not shun these people. They're helping our case. They're helping our case. This is what we've been saying. And now their own people are saying it. So we need to hear those people. We need to hear them. Let them say it loud and clear. Because they're helping to make our case. So that's the first thing you need to do. We need to do. Don't shun them. I will invite them on this program. Let them come here and let them critique the PPP on this program. They're helping our case. So that's the first attitude change I want to recommend this evening. Yes, cost them that they help to put the PPP in power, but recognize that this is 15 months later. And at least they're coming out. And if they're coming out, we must help them to come out more. No. Thugs are violent people. I said, look at the economic violence that has been unleashed on supporters of the opposition. Look at the economic violence. Don't say the government don't have money. The government borrowing left, right, and center. And they get $250,000 they can give to sugar workers. Rice farmers, they give them must be more than $250,000. Some of their own people said there was corruption in the money they give to the rice farmers and other agricultural workers, other farmers who were impacted by the flood. They give them more than $250,000. So you give rice farmers more than $250,000, you give sugar workers $250,000, and you give the other side nothing. That's economic violence. It's also economic violence that's operating within an ethnic context. is ethnic economic violence. Most of the public servants are black people, teachers, nurses, policemen and women, people working in ministry. They're already the lowest paid. The average salary for a public servant is below the average salary for a cane cutter. No, I'm not against cane cutters getting more money, getting better wages. But when you're giving them better wages and you're giving the other side starvation wages, something is wrong. And what is wrong is that you are engaging in ethnic violence against a major ethnic group in your country. You're not meeting with the public service unions. You're not meeting with the GTU, the GPSU. They've been calling on you to meet. You have not been meeting. But since a couple of sugar workers come out on the road, you're calling God, we'll meet with them and settle it next day. Oh man, oh, you got shame. You know say, oh God, if me do this, people like David Hines and them gon call me out on it. We can't be so barefaced, man. Let me give them a little 15%. David Hines ain't gonna quarrel about that. But 7% he gonna quarrel. They got shame. They don't care. They don't care. Because they're thugs. No. Let me deal with this question. Thugs govern by violence and they provoke violence. The PPP must know that they're dealing with human beings. They must know that bucket will go well one day, bottom go fall out. Bob Marley in the song I Shot the Sheriff, he said, I was going out of town one day and I saw Sheriff Brown and I know he will shoot me. So I shot first. I shot the sheriff. And if I'm guilty, I will pay. The PPP must know that there is a limit to what people can take. Brother Bob again say, ain't no rules now. No bullet can stop me now. They must know. And yet they are doing what they're doing, which means their intention is to provoke violence. You see, violence is not just the naked physical violence. It's the promotion of violence through your policies. You're frustrating people. Look how opposition supporters beating up on their leaders. Quite rightly. The PPP is provoking violence. They want the opposition side to get so frustrated that they will engage in violence. They want that. Because they will then say, we are the victims. They will then hold up East Indians to say, look what them black man do to you. And you want for attack what we doing. Look what a black man, they're provoking violence. Let me make it very clear. I'm against violence. I've studied ethnically divided societies, and I've seen what ethnic violence does to communities, to countries. Look at the Palestinians and the Israelis. Never ending. Never ending. Look at the violence between Pakistan and India. Never ending. Look at the violence in the Sudan. Never ending. Look at the long violence between in Ireland there. When you study ethnic violence, it's one of the worst forms of violence in the world. One of the worst forms of political violence. It ain't got no rules. Societies can record our own country had our ethnic violence 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And we haven't recovered from that. And that wasn't a large-scale violence. It wasn't at the level of the Palestinians and Israelis. So I am against violence, and for those who think that I have something to say, I want to urge us that violence is not the way to go. Violence is not the way to go. But if you are the victim of violence, what do you do? I'm against violence. But if my supporters are the recipient of violence, economic violence, physical violence, police violence, must I allow my fear of violence, my opposition to violence, must I allow my opposition to violence to turn me into a coward in the face of violence? You know what? To give you a quotation. And the quotation goes like this. If I have to choose between violence and cowardice, I will choose violence. And you know who says so? Not Marx. Mahatma Gandhi. The Prince of Nonviolence said, if I have to choose between violence and cowardice, I will choose violence. I am not for violence as a solution. I'm opposed to it. I explained just now why. It consumes all of us. At the end of the day, people may win small victories. I'm from a village that the set of violence between 2002 and 2006, and the world, Guyana and the world, are yet to understand how that violence has destroyed my village, the impact. We are rebuilding our village. Those 4 years of violence has done untold destruction. The raping of women during those 4 years, unspeakable. And nobody, not the government, not the supporters of the gunmen, nobody has come back to that village and said, how can we help in post-war Buxton? because it was a war on our soil by external forces. The gunmen didn't originate in Buxton, and then the government sent in their phantom to deal with the gunmen, and our village became a graveyard. To this day, we have not fully recovered. The first time I'm speaking openly on that thing. And I, along with Kwayana and Andaye, were the only three Black leaders who, when Indians were being killed, they passed through Buxton, they beat them, some of them came. We were the only ones who couldn't condemn it. Does the PPP remember that? Oh no, Kwayana is the biggest racist. David Hines is more racist than Kwayana. We who defended the Indians when they were under attack. So what I study and what I see about ethnic violence, I do not wish that on my country. But like the Mahatma, if I had to choose between cowardice and self-defense, because if you are responding to the violence of the state, you are doing so in self-defense. So I think the time has come to defend ourselves. No violence. No violence. The objective of our self-defense must not be violence. It must be freedom. Let the violence come from those who they got violence on the brains. And they usually want to goad us, they provoke us. So when we respond in self-defense, they say, you see, it's violence. But Marley said, he who live to live, he who fight and run away lives to fight another day. What it means that you got to fight smart. You don't fight to get killed today. The hotter the struggle, the sweeter the victory. That's what Brother Bob said in the song Jamming. Or he's in one of the two. So, I think it's time for self-defense. We have to figure out forms of self-defense that are short of violence. That's where we are. I noticed Patrick Yard tells the workers they must go slow, they must think at first glance. I would say, Patrick, you're right, but Patrick, you are the leader. You must lead the workers. There is time for a general strike in the public service. The last time the public servants had to go on strike was 1999, and the PPP at that time was forced to set up a tribunal. Clive Thomas, my party leader, Dr. Armstrong, And the PPP had a man, I think it was Gobinganga or one of them. They set up that arbitration tribunal, and that tribunal made recommendations to the PPP for the public servants, which the PPP did not honor. To this day, it does not honor them. But the point is, this is not time for a trade union leader in the face of the violence, the economic violence, to say to your people, to say to the members of your union, they must go slow. So you're telling them, you do what you want to do. No, you are the leader. And the public service union must go on strike. Withdraw your labor. Because if to them your labor means nothing, your labor means minus 7%, minus 10%, your labor means nothing. I'm in a Bob Marley mood to tonight. Didn't my people before me slave for this country? That's what Bob Marley asked. Didn't my people before me slave for this country? And I build your cabin, and I plant the corn. Did my people before me slave for this country? You look in my face with corn and eat up all my corn. And I must sit down because of my fear, not to be violent people. If we were, given what they did to us for 400 years, we would have been violent 24/7. We are not a violent people. And we must not pretend that we are a violent people. And we must not allow people to pin violence on us. But we are a resistance people. And we must resist. We must defend ourselves. The unions must call out their workers. The time has come for the unions to call their workers out on strike. Withdraw your labor. And let's take it from there. Some of you are too young to remember. But in Linden, in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, when the unions didn't want to call strikes, the workers would call strikes and force the union to endorse their strike. The Askrea group in Linden in the 60s and the early 70s called a series of strikes at the Bauxite Company. When the government of the day wanted to get the insurance money after nationalization to put it in something, the workers went on strike. It was called the Ryler strike. To the 1980s. 1983, a brother Leach dropped down on the job because in those days, there was scarce food, scarce. People had to go to work in the morning. They couldn't afford breakfast. And the workers went on strike and forced the union to endorse strike. 1983. Your unions don't want to take action. Workers have to organize themselves. And you have to look to new and alternative leaders to lead you. We cannot sit down anymore. Workers, this is the end of the rope. You can't get worse than this. These people have no shame. They give you 7% and tax it. You have no shame. Like you as a little frack. Then you no pay rent since 2019. Then my people before me slave for this country and continue to do so. Is our people who have to educate our children. And our teachers, when they walk into those classrooms, then get Indian and black and Amerindian. They walk into that classroom and they give of their more than their lives. Sometimes neglecting their own children. When the teacher got to stay up, stay in class, stay till 5, 6 o'clock. They don't pick to the home and they're there educating our children, our nurses, our policemen and women. And you cannot compensate them. Even if you're giving a freck, you don't give them a big raise. No, we have reached the end of the rope. It is time for action. We have to balance our anti-violence position with a pro-resistance position.
You can keep your conniving money. When you've been a corrupt in a bill, tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full in a bill, tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, neighbor. Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, now I don't want you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that me walk for. I said money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. Now I don't want you conniving money. Oh, Joseph, for me.
Yeah, this is Konganaya outside of Demico, the morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. I want to welcome to you. Welcome to another program of BUXTONIAN Morning Time. I am your host, KAMSTV. It is now 7 hours 21 in this dear land of Guyana. A land of many waters, and it's raining cats and dogs. And so long as it rains cats and dogs in the land of many waters, we're going to get rainfall bucket a drop. You're going to get water in kitchen and cool. And so a lot of people are in flooded situations as we speak. Yes. Water in the hole. I trust that you had a productive day yesterday, a restful night last night. I hope many of you didn't have to get out of your sleeps during the night to pack up your furnishings and other things like you became accustomed to under the PPP 23 years plus. And then you came to that point where you could sleep through the night despite the fact that it is raining animals. And here again, when the rain smiles, the place floods. And so I hope you had a restful night last night and didn't have to be awakened by the rains. As a matter of fact, as a youngster growing up, I know the heavier it rains, the tighter the sleep. You wrap up tighter in your sheets and so on. And those who have light blankets will wrap up tighter with those. But the whole story is, times have changed. For 23 years under the former PPP administration, once it rains, chaos. Almost SETI wet up. People wake up to floating fridges and other things in their homes, furnishings. People step out of their bed into a stream. That was happening under the PPP for the last 23 years while they were in power. But thanks to Patterson and the coalition, a lot of that was changed over time. When the fat guy and his cohorts took over in August, they tried to give us the impression that they care and they can deal with flooding and they can maintain drainage and irrigation canals and so on. It was such a frightening thing for the fat guy, for the nation to see a return to their homes being flooded out, that the man used to wake up in the middle of his sleep and go and check on pump attendants. Y'all remember? Well, I am sure many of us are wishing now that he was still checking on pump attendants. But the fat guy has become comfortable, gouging off of the state's resources and sleeping comfortably in facilities provided for by the state. And so while the fat guy sleeps and his cohorts sleep, the ordinary citizens are having sleepless nights because it's raining heavily and drainage and irrigation canals are not properly maintained, and equipment to assist in keeping drainages up to par are either malfunctioning, have disappeared, and so on and so forth. But this is Guyana. It's the 10th of December. This raining will spoil nobody's Christmas. All of you, all of us, every single body will get a wonderful Christmas. Rain or no rain, check Regent Street later in the day. People are going to put on their galoshes. Is that what it's called? We call them long boots. Other people call them galosh. Is that the name? Or galosh is the umbrella? I know parasol is umbrella. Right? Yes, galoshes. Dickinson's, gumshoes, rubbers, overshoes, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people will put them on. And they're going to go up and down Regent Street looking for ways and means to spend what you ain't got. Like I say, a lot of you will be putting your hats where your hand can't reach now. So them say. But that's not why I'm here this morning. I'm here for us to talk about fixing GECOM. Let's fix GECOM. Fixing GECOM. That's the topic for today. What's happening over GECOM? Well, a lot has been happening. From August 2 to now, the PPP was busy fixing GECOM. I don't know how many of you paid attention to the fact that they were fixing GECOM. And I want to tell you that when they finish fixing GECOM, go beyond the opposition political parties in this country. Go beyond to them. It is going to be a total shutout. We will fix GECOM and we are going to have a wonderful one-party state. And then we will start digging some Putin and Castros in y'all. Right? Then is when you're going to know if the PPP is really communist or capitalist. As a matter of fact, I believe there could be some communist capitalists or some communist capitalists. Because every day we are seeing some commonness going on in this country with the PPP as they exhibit a capitalist mentality. So we got some communists as capitalists. And so you're going to see more of it. Let's fix GECOM. So let's talk about how GECOM has been fixed or is being fixed. The PPP declared earlier clock, we ain't going to no elections with the current secretariat. Lowenfield must go. Myers must go. Mingo must go. All of those senior officers and some juniors in the secretariat must go. We got to clean up GECOM. We got to get rid of the people who can stand in between us and what we want. And so we're going to give them all kinds of labels, and we are going to campaign day and night to get them out. And campaign they did. And got rid of them they did. Right? Chief among the campaigners was the man whose wife is now saying that he don't mind the picnic. He got a couple picnic and he ain't minding them. But he dressing up in suit and tie and waxed lyrical in public and got plenty followers. Right? That was one of the main campaigners. Good? The other one sat at Ministry of Social Services for years under the PPP in the last government. And there's nothing social about her. She's one of the most brash, uncouth human beings I've ever come across. But that aside, they found favor with the Madam Chair. And they got rid of all who they wanted to get rid of from the Secretariat, at least up to this time. And so they're fixing GECOM. Having gotten rid of those at the Secretariat, they're now advertising, or they have advertised for the replacement for some of those. Well, you know, the PPP got away stacking the deck. And so the deck was stacked. It was stacked with Vishnu Prasad, it was stacked with Gokul Buru, and others favorable to the PPP. They set a criteria, they set a bar so high. That's what Simmons, you like my people business. Who don't mind their picnic? That is used by now. It is the mayor commissioner at GECOM that is not an opposition commissioner, he's a government commissioner. They say you can't lay by and whistle. But anyhow, they set out to stack the Secretariat. And so they set a bar so high that only those in love those in bed with the PPP could qualify. Only those in bed with the PPP could qualify. That's what they thought. But thanks to Vincent Alexander and Desmond Trotman and Charles Corbin, they insisted that, you know what? These vacancies must be advertised far and wide throughout the Caribbean, internationally. So we don't have to stick to Guyanese alone applying for this job. So when they thought that only those that they baptized would have made the cut for final selection, they were wrong. Because you had some international applicants. You have a man out of Jamaica, I think his name is Haro. I'll tell you about him just now. So Vishnu, well, early o'clock, pressure from folks like yours truly and the other talk show opposition elements forced Boudou to pull out prematurely and disappear. So Boudou said, I can't bear the heat in this kitchen. I'm going to pull out prematurely and disappear. And he did exactly that. Boudou pull out. So he didn't stick around to do bad things to Guyanese people supported by the PPP. I don't know if it was a prick of conscience or it was too much pressure to bear. But Boudou pulled out and he left. Vishnu Prasad, however, remained in the race along with some others, including the man from Jamaica. And so they went through the different phases of selection. As a matter of fact, as they were shortlisting, they came to realize that there were some people who didn't make the cut at all. And so they should be discarded. But the PPP commissioners, enabled and bolstered by the chairman that swung, argued and insisted and used their majority to allow some people to go through. But when push come to shove, it came down to two persons. Right? It came down to two persons. At first, there were three. There were three. And I will share with you a letter from somebody named something White or something like that. Sam White. Obviously, I think that's a pseudonym. I don't think it's the right name. But this person wrote to Village Voice. And he is saying Deodat Prasad was unfairly treated. Remember Deodat Prasad. So it's Vishnu Prasad is Deodat Prasad. Like they had a lot of Prasads in the race. Anyhow, let me share the letter for you. Because the letter will have a bearing on the rest of the discussions that we will have about fixing GECOM. Dear editor, I, like many Guyanese, was shocked when GECOM presented its top 2 candidates for the post of CEO. Worse than indeed an insult to anyone's intelligence is the conclusion that one candidate in that list is the deemed most qualified for the post. It is my belief that Mr. Deodat Prasad was not fairly treated in deriving this list. Allow me to explain. From the education standpoint, Mr. Deodat Prasad is most qualified. In the advertisement published by GECOM, it was specific in asking for a postgraduate degree in public administration, law, or a related field. From Mr. Prasad LinkedIn profile, not only does he have a master's degree in public administration, but as an asset, he has one in business administration also. Mr. Leslie Harrow holds a master's in public administration only. However, Mr. Vishnu Prasad does not have a master's in the field requested by GECOM. A master's in business administration is clearly non-relatable to the work of the commission. Besides, Mr. Vishnu Prasad is not the holder of even a bachelor's degree. He holds a level 5 certificate. According to the National Qualifications Authority of UK, it qualifies the level 5 certificate as HNDs, NVQs, BTEC, professional diplomas, certificates and awards, foundation degrees, diploma of higher education, equivalent. The same source notes that it only a level 6 certificate. It is only a level 6 certificate which is considered a bachelor's degree. Besides, the duration for a level 5 certificate is 2 years, whereas for a degree it is 3 years. From the above, it remains a mystery as to the reasons Mr. Vishnu Prasad was deemed qualified academically from among the current set of applicants. Y'all note, take note, this writer is saying that when you put the education, certification, qualification for these 3 persons together, Deodat Prasad, Vishnu Prasad, and Mr. Harrow, what Harrow is, right? Vishnu Prasad is the least qualified because he doesn't have a bachelor's degree and his master's in business administration really has no impact on what GECOM requires, right? GECOM is asking for a degree in public administration. I want to point out one thing here with the writer. He's arguing that business administration has nothing to do with what GECOM is asking for. But he's using business administration to put Deodat Prasad ahead of the other candidates. Everybody got a race or got a horse in the race, so they will do whatever is necessary, right? Good. So, based on this argument, if business administration has nothing to do with what GECOM is asking for, then it means Vishnu Prasad is the least qualified still, but Mr. Harrow and Deodat Prasad, perhaps, just perhaps, are on the same plane because they both have the degree in public administration, etc. In terms of experience, Mr. Vishnu Prasad, again, quoting from his LinkedIn profile, has been a PR, that's public relation assistant to the chairman. These roles are not managerial. The question is simple. How many persons did Vishnu Prasad manage in this role, direct or indirectly? His 3 short years as DCEO, while may be the senior role he had with the commission, this is inadequate as per GECOM requirements. Did GECOM consider Mr. Vishnu Prasad and Mr. Deodat Prasad's performance appraisals in making this decision? Remember, GECOM said you had to have 10 years. And so Vishnu, according to this letter writer, only has 3, acting as DCO. Right? Important questions must be asked as the number of people he managed in reality. If Mr. Vishnu Prasad's years as a PRO can be added to among his 10 years experience, then Mr. Deodat Prasad years as assistant registration officer at a permanent registration office must also count. Mr. Harrow functions at a zonal office. the equivalent to the one Mr. Deodat Prasad currently serves. If Mr. Harrow application was considered due to his experience, why wasn't Mr. Deodat Prasad's? Given that he served in the same level, except in different country. Let's not forget that Mr. Prasad served as a commissioner in a national body for 3 years, gaining him strategic leadership experience. According to GECOM's website, an assistant registration officer's roles are as follows. Ensures responsibility to the registration officer for the management of his or her sub-office. Determines the validity of registration applications in the relevant registration divisions with respect to transactions. Assists the registration officer in the conduct of staff development sessions. Assists the registration officer in the management of the office. Assists the registration officer in the management. Assists the registration officer in the submission and receipt of registration transactions and reports. Assist the registration officer in the maintenance of transaction ledgers. Conduct periodic reconciliation of records. Undertake the functions of the registration officer in his or her absence. How could someone who was exposed to the above for over 16 years be excluded? The above clearly shows that Mr. Deodat Prasad and his office functioned in a senior capacity, just under the registration officer. This is senior the office he is assigned. If one is to look at the organization chart, imagine the number of persons under Mr. Prasad's supervision during a temporary activity. Let's look at his role as Deputy Returning Officer. GECOM lists as following. The DRO reports to the returning officer and is responsible for the operation of a group of polling stations or for a sub-district. He or she is expected to organize and supervise the arrangements for polling stations. Ensure that all polling officials appointed have the skills for the effective and efficient performance of their duties. Promptly report matters of concern to the returning officer. Ensure that all election materials are made available to polling stations in sufficient quantities and on time. Disseminate official information throughout his district. Visit polling stations before election day with returning officers and presiding officer. Visit polling stations in his or her sub-district on election day and give feedback to the returning officer. Advice and guidance to the presiding officer and other polling officials. Receive results of the poll from presiding officers. Transmit results of the poll to returning officer immediately. Ensure that all postings and publications are taken down as soon as practicable after election day. Ensure that all election materials or the fixtures and ballot boxes are promptly remitted to the returning officer and performing other duties related to the conduct of poll as required by the returning officer. How can a person with all the above exposure at the grassroots level, with all institutional knowledge gained over 16 years, does not make the cut for the CEO post? The GECOM system is clearly subjective and bent on producing candidates the commissioners prefer rather than the most qualified. Moving forward, GECOM needs to correct this wrong perpetrated against Mr. Deodat Prasad. It is interesting to ask how many CEOs in the past needed to have 10 years experience in senior elections role. If elections is every 5 years, then to gain such truly, one needs to wait for 10 elections, equal to 50 years. Such candidate will be over 70 years old. Is this thinking? Sam White, right? Sam White, that's Sam White for you. Now, the writer says that it's clear that GECOM's method of selection of candidates is subjective. The coalitions or the opposition commissioners argued against that subjective process. They argued that the commissioners should not participate in the process. They should farm this out to some human resource agency to conduct the interviews and so on, and select the appropriate candidate. Of course, again, the PPP had their way because Claudette joined with them and said, nah, it's not going to happen. We will do it. And so it was done. The decks were stacked. The PPP hoped that they were going to get Buru. And when Buru pulled out prematurely, their hopes rested on Vishnu Prasad. And so even when Vishnu Prasad turned up short, couldn't make the mark, the evidence is there in the letter. And if you think the evidence is there only in the letter, let me tell you, I got my sources. Right? I got my sources. And based on information received by my sources, the evidence presented in the letter is quite right. Right? And those of you who have good institutional memory will remember that when Vishnu Prasad applied for the DCO position, then Chairman Patterson opted for Roxanne Myers because he said Roxanne Myers was head and shoulders above Vishnu Prasad in terms of qualification and experience. The PPP made a whole set of noise. But here again, in a new round of advertisements for hiring senior officers, Vishnu Prasad has turned up short. It is not Patterson who is the chairman now. It is Claudette, the woman that they say swung, and the woman that has certainly been taking the sides of the PPP commissioners from August 2 to now. There's no question about that. If you look at her decision making, you look at some of the things she votes for along with the PPP, then you will know that she's taking sides. And so I'm saying I have relevant information in relation to Vishnu Prasad's certification qualification. And this did not come from LinkedIn. I can tell you that. This did not come from LinkedIn. It came from reliable sources. So it's not just a matter of what Vishnu Prasad put up on LinkedIn. That is present there. But there are other ways and means of verifying that. And I'm saying that Sam White is on the button when he says that Vishnu Prasad is the least qualified of the final picks. And so they got rid of Deodad Prasad. And the race now is between Vishnu Prasad and Mr. Harrow. Mr. Harrow is Jamaican. And so if Sam White is arguing as he presented the evidence that Vishnu Prasad is the least qualified of the three, then it is natural that Mr. Harrow is much more qualified than Vishnu Prasad. And the evidence is there also, because I have it, to show that based on experience, Mr. Harrow comes out at the head of the line when it comes to Vishnu Prasad. Ordinarily, it would have been the end of the road for Vishnu. It would have been the end of the race. And we would have had an announcement that says the Jamaican is the new Chief Elections Officer. Leslie Harrow is the new Chief Elections Officer of GECOM. But because of the subjectivity which obtains from the commissioners and the chairperson of GECOM, we are left to wait. I think they are going to meet, today's Friday. I think GECOM meets on Fridays. Perhaps they are going to meet today to argue and banter, to hold circus, and then announce. Well, they may or may not announce today who the final pick is. But I want to say this to you guys. Given the fact that the PPP is bent on fixing GECOM. Note they said that we have to fix GECOM. We're not going to go to any elections with this set of people. We have to fix GECOM. And fixing GECOM, in my mind, is not just about hiring competent people at GECOM, but hiring people who are going to sing the songs of the PPP and dance to the music of the PPP and corrupt the system as the PPP likes. Keeping that in mind, I am saying to you, do not be surprised if you hear an announcement that says Vishnu Prasad is the final pick for Chief Elections Officer of GECOM. Right? What do you do when you hear such an announcement? What should be done when you hear such an announcement? Because it is obvious an injustice would have taken place. GECOM would have been fixed if you allow such biases to take control of the process. Because at the end of the day, no matter how good the arguments put forward by the coalition, by the opposition commissioners, at the end of the day, when it comes to a vote, the PPP has Claudette in their corner. And so the 3 PPP commissioners, government commissioners, will vote for Vishnu Prasad. I am putting my head on a block for that. They will vote for Vishnu Prasad. The 3 opposition commissioners, rightfully, based on his qualification and experience, will vote for Leslie Harrow. Claudette will have the tiebreaker, the casting vote. Listen out. Listen out. Watch and wait. And see where that vote will be cast. See where that vote will be cast. The question which follows is, what will you do? What should Guyanese do? What will the opposition do? What will the politicians do if or when Claudette votes for Vishnu Prasad to be the Chief Elections Officer of this country? Not only is he not qualified, academically and experience-wise, but I do not think that he's ethically qualified. I don't think he has the moral compass to operate in such an important position if we are to see free and fair elections in this country. And so if they were to select Vishnu Prasad from the inception, you're saying that the election process is tainted, because the selection would have been tainted. And so I'm putting you on guard for that. Let's watch as they fix GECOM. Somebody is saying that if Leslie Harrow is selected, you would have to be schooled by the PPP. I am hoping that he has the testicular fortitude. Now we had a dunce named Leonard Soklal. I call him a dunce because if he has been following the discussion, then he would have heard me say that just like when Vishnu Prasad applied for the DCO position, then Chairman Patterson said that Roxanne Myers were eminently qualified. She was most qualified. She came out head and shoulders ahead of Vishnu Prasad in terms of qualification and experience. How then are you coming to ask that question, Suklal? If Myers was qualified. Yes, she was qualified. Much, much more qualified. She got a bachelor's degree. But Vishnu Prasad has a level 5 certificate. And that doesn't substitute for a bachelor's degree. So let's continue the conversation now. Somebody said Leslie Harrow would have to be schooled by the PPP to give them what they want. I am saying I pray to God. Like all Jamaicans, a lot of Jamaicans are stand-up people, you know. They rather die for what I believe in. Their principle. I'm hoping and praying that Mr. Harrow is such a Jamaican. That he got a testicular fortitude, he got a balls, he got a gumption, he got a guts. To tell them his job at GECOM is not to facilitate the PPP, but it's to facilitate free and fair elections. Right? That is what I'm hoping. But let us start by looking at the selection of the Chief Elections Officer based on qualification and experience. And if you look at it based on qualification and experience, the person who should and ought to be selected is Leslie Harrow, a Jamaican, a son of the Caribbean soil. Right? Let's wait and see. What will happen after? That too we will have to wait and see. So that's about fixing GECOM. It's not the only way they're fixing GECOM or they're fixing the elections. And when they finish fixing, that is when you will have the announcement of a date for a local government election. I'll tell you that. Because once they finish fixing, they will want to test their fix to see how it works. And they will test their fix at local government elections. So by the time regional and general elections come around again, they would have already known which screws need tightening. So look out. Fixing GECOM is important. Being vigilant while GECOM is being fixed is even more important. Because when they're done fixing it, they will test it at local government elections. Right? An important point has been made here. Let's hope that Harrow is not an associate of Bruce Golding. Because we know that during the recount, one of the persons in the CARICOM team was the very person who rigged an election in favor of Ralph Gonsalves in SVG. We knew that. Right? A lot of people perhaps didn't know, but many of us knew. That one of the males, was a two-man team? I think so. The male on the CARICOM recount team had rigged an election in favor of Ralph Gonsalves. And so he was placed on the team by Ralph, who is a good friend and cohort of the PPP cabal. They got things they ain't gonna tell you about a recount. For example, Mia. Let's say professor were running up your mouth. Giles is one of Mia foot soldiers. And she was given specific instructions. She is the only person who wrote that report. She had a major role in submission of that report. And a lot of what was in that report was dictated to her. So, very good point. Somebody needs to investigate the association. Because like I said, PPP stacked the deck from the beginning. And who is to say that they didn't contact Golding and tell him, hey, send one of your boys to apply. So if we lose it down, hey, we got a backup catcher. All possibilities. All possibilities. Sometimes you really have to be the conspiracy theorists to examine these things. Right? So when they're done when they're finished fixing the secretariat and fixing GECOM, or while they're doing that, they are also aiming and they're scheming to fix the electoral districts. And that is why they want to divide East Coast or Region 4 into 4 voting blocks. That is why they want to divide it. Because they want to gerrymander. They want to put the boundaries in such a way that the majority of the districts will be won by them. They will divide it in such a way that their strongholds dominate the districts, and so they will win Region 4, because Region 4 is critical to winning the elections. You either rig Region 4 to win a large section of it, or you lose the election, unless you could win it fairly. And that is what the PPP knows, and that is what they are setting out to do. Gerrymander Region 4 so that they can win it and win the elections. Like I said, when they have finished fixing GECOM, unless people stand up and be strong, we are going to end up with a one-party state, because they're going to shut out the other political parties from winning any election in this country. And Guyanese must guard against that, because you see what the PPP in government is about. It's not about the people. It's about friends and cronies and the haves, while they have not suffered. Want me to tell you what else they're doing to gerrymander? They know that they got regions like Region 6 locked in terms of support. They get more than enough votes to win Region 6. And so what they are now doing with land distribution is giving residents of Region 6 lands in Region 4. So they're bringing away the excess support from Region 6 and plant them in Region 4 in order to reduce the margin of victory for the coalition in this region, or win it outright. And that's a part of their gerrymandering, and people need to pay attention to those things. What is the opposition's response? Time will tell. Congress is tomorrow. Congress is tomorrow. Well, up until now, Congress is tomorrow, because I understand the report has been submitted. Vincent Alexander was invited to examine the processes and the systems in place for Congress tomorrow and make a pronouncement on it. And based on information received, I think via the press, Vincent is saying postpone Congress until the 18th. Give it another week, because there are some things which are critical to the process that have not yet been put in place. And while you're saying you can do it in short order, it is best to give it a week to ensure that it is done, and then you proceed with Congress. So there are two dates which are now being proposed for Congress: the 18th and the 19th. Right? The 18th and the 19th. And so, if Congress is not tomorrow, Congress is likely to be on the 18th or the 19th. I'm hearing that Congress is not tomorrow. So let's look to the 18th and the 19th. And so, I really believe we need to get Congress out of the way. We really need to get Congress out of the way. Because a lot is riding on what comes out of Congress. Right? There's some very important things which must be first on the list of whoever emerges leader of the PNC after Congress. And one of the things I think is paying attention to what the PPP is doing to gerrymander votes. They're moving people from Region 6 to Region 4. And I'm told that they're doing similar things in Region 10, in that they're moving people maybe from Region 3 or wherever into Region 10 to reduce the margin of victory for the coalition in those regions, with the hope of negating those victories so that they can continue to win elections and win them and control the state for thy kingdom come. Good. It is now 8 hours 5 and the lines are open. 6225933 is the number to call. Let's talk about fixing GECOM. Let's also talk about fixing the drainage situation in this country, because I want to know what's happening in your neck of the woods. Are you flooded? Is the water rising? Are the pumps in your area working? Those are some of the things I would like to know. Caller Live, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning, caller.
Morning, Kadaki. Great program. In reference to GECOM, you asked the question if the out of the two CEO candidate, if the one with the least experience is picked, what would Guyanese do? What would the APNU commissioners do, and what would the people do? Here's my take on that. If the lesser of the two candidates, which is the Indian PPP designated commissioner, if he is selected, the Guyanese people are not going to do anything. The commissioners that are on the APNU side will not do anything. What they should do is all resign if he's selected. And basically, you know, what would the APNU do? I don't believe they'll do nothing. So it's nothing will happen, because nothing have happened before with all the other stuff that have taken place. So why would we expect anything different? Nothing will happen.
You want me to ask you something, caller? Or let me ask you something?
Yeah, sure.
If you were to be given a constitutional office job, a job as a constitutional office holder, and based on the position you hold, it is a position for life, is there anything that will cause you to resign it?
You gotta have some aligned principle.
You sure you will give up your job because of principle?
Well, going along, well, I mean, it is a tough sell, but
God, it's okay. You can move ahead.
It's a tough sell.
Okay, sir.
You gotta look at everything, you know, and those jobs are not for life.
Yes, they are.
They are?
Yes.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yes, they are. As far as I know, a commissioner from GECOM can only be removed by death or resignation. I stand to be corrected, but that's what I think I know. Call Live, good morning. Call Live, good morning.
Very good morning, Kadaki.
Morning to you.
Yeah, I don't understand the first caller point. What is he trying to get at? You know what I mean? Okay, we are talking about fixing GECOM, right? I think that we need to fix GECOM by getting the U.S. government, as you're talking about transparency, or they talk about transparency. We should get our to note what is going on at GECOM, as we want transparency, right? We should get our to sanction these people, right? We should be sanctioned at least. The thing should be sanctioned. The PP Commission should be sanctioned. And if Vishnu Prasad got the position, he should be sanctioned by the U.S. government, right? As long as if we don't sanction these people, things would never go right at GECOM. So we need to get them sanctioned. That's my take this morning. Thank you very much.
Okay, let me tell you this. Don't expect the U.S. to sanction anybody based on the selection of the CEO at GECOM, because the U.S. will be getting what they want. Right? The U.S. is in the camp of the PPP. And what suits the PPP suits the U.S. Keep that in mind. Have a good day.
Okay.
Let me tell you this. Don't expect the U.S. to sanction anybody based on the selection of the CEO at GECOM, because the U.S. will be getting what they want. Right? The U.S. is in the camp of the PPP. I want to suit the...
Call Live, good morning. Call Live, good morning. Call Live, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Amsterdam. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, man. GECOM was allowed to do their own thing because of the slackness of the opposition. They need to live
the opposition said new opposition to what right now is transpiring there at GECOM. And I will say it again, I would like to see what that leader who's going to be emerging out of the Congress, as they said, that they're going to be the Messiah. Whenever there's a leader to come out from Congress place, they're going to be, that person going to be the Messiah. I would like to see how they're going to fix GECOM. Because as far as I'm concerned, the opposition allowed the PPP to have the way. The PPP said clearly, they're not going back to any elections with Myers and the rest, Lonefield and the rest. They stick to the words. They're in the process, they did it. For a matter of fact, in the process of doing it, they did it. Now, the delegates for the PNC should ask Borman what was his proposal on the table when the PPP makes those demands. What was the opposition's demand? So there's a whole set of nonsense, as I'm concerned, going on. And the delegates, they should choose, if they're looking at Ormond, look at that part before casting their votes. I expect to hear when all this nonsense is going on, the opposition would have come out with their demands. And I think the demand should have been call off. Khaled Singh should have been the top of the list. They're not going back to election with Khaled Singh as the chair. Period. Any other thing we discuss after that and call off the two commissioners. The PPP would have done that. You know, so I thought the commissioners don't have the votes in there. They sit there, they put whatsoever they have to put at the table, it still wouldn't carry. But sitting there in itself, while all of these things are taking place in GECOM, they legitimize the process. They don't have to get the vote, the presence alone. So the PPP will have something over the head. The other three commissioners were there. The process was fair. Everybody was present. Everybody had the thing. We had the votes. And that is how it goes. That would be the PPP explanation. One, two, three commissioners there. One day part of the process. You know?
Thank you, Carla.
This is the nonsense. This is the nonsense that took place there at GECOM. Let me see how they're going to fix it. Oh, thank you,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now I am on the page, some group called Guyanese Diaspora Online. And there's a poster by the name of Bill Ramnares. And he says this is where the politics comes in. The two candidates have been interviewed and their scores will be submitted to the chairman. One source said it will eventually boil down to the votes by commissioners. So what is likely to happen? 50-50 split between the two parties, like I said. Call all the line. 50-50 split between the two parties, with the chairman having the casting vote. It is my view, that is Ramnares' view, that Vishnu should be the victor. But knowing how this government is behaving, do not be surprised that the effort Jamaican getting the vote to show that no matter what race you are, the PPP will support you in their quest to win over more African support. If Vishnu do not get the job as CEO, I will stop supporting the PPP government and I will start a campaign to show that Indians will always be used by the PPP to get into office. And once they get into office, they take you for granted, believing that Indians are walked over like they are doing to India at the moment. That is Ramnares posting their bill in Ramnares. Like the commissioners at GECOM, Bill is not concerned about who is more qualified. He's concerned about ethnicity. Call A Live, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Cadet. It is so sad that, you know, what's going on in our country. And the opposition, I really think the opposition, he should step aside because he just wasting time. Because what's going on at GECOM, the opposition should stand up and demand what he wants also. If the install regime demanding what they want, he should stand up and say what he need to. Because Clara Singh is a bitch and she's a demon because she's going to go with the government. She's going to go with... Yes,
Caller, stick a pin. Don't come on this program and call our women bitches. I don't like it.
Okay, Mr. Gaddafi.
Good.
No, what I'm saying, this woman going to go with the government commissioners and she's not going to go with the opposition commissioner. And you don't see where this woman heading to. So everybody don't see where this thing going to go and who she going to go with. So it don't really make sense. And I don't know what the opposition is doing. Because if they do decide to go down that road, the opposition not going to go back in government for the very longest time. And that's exactly what's going to happen. That's my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If they want to stay and take lockout, it's a matter for them. But I know it's lockout if they allow the PPP to do as they want to do with Vishnu Prasad. It's lockout. Right? And like I said, or somebody said, you don't know if Mr. Leslie Harrow is an implant also. So it might be a wheel in a wheel. The lines are open. 6225933 is the number to call. Let me see if there are any voice notes for me to play this morning. It could be a wheel in a wheel. I don't know. Who don't know? Who don't know? Haha. Fat for no, they say, no? Good guy needs parables. It is now 8:17. The lines remain open. You're tuned to the Buxtonian Morning Time. Let's talk about fixing GECOM. Voice note here.
Good morning, Mr. Kadaki. You know, just listening to what GECOM is doing makes my blood curdle, and it seems not to have any effect on the leader of the opposition nor the citizens. Mr. Harman could detach himself from the leadership role of the party as much as he wants. The fact still remains he is a leader, and I also feel he is a squared peg in a round hole. From the time the PPP said they will fix GECOM and started arresting the GECOM officials, Harman should have gathered his people as a leader and organized mass protests. Protest is a form of pushing back. Instead, he will wait until the deed is done, then react by giving speech. In most of his rambling, he denounced what the PPP is doing and tell them to stop. Newsflash, he has been doing that for over 14 months, and the PPP is lending him a deaf ear. Because they are not getting pushed back, they are emboldened to do the things they are doing. GECOM wasn't broken. The PPP just didn't like that they didn't have total control, so they got rid of what they thought were the elephants in the room. When it comes to the citizens, I don't understand why they're not paying attention to what is taking place at GECOM nor the politics in Guyana. I heard people saying they don't get involved in politics. Little do they know, politics is part of everyday life because the decisions that are made by the politicians could have long-lasting impact on day-to-day survival and existence. Once GECOM select a commissioner to do their bidding, that will be the end of blacks. And I'm not bashful in saying blacks because the PPP is a race party and they do not like blacks, except for those house slaves, and I'm not even sure about that. Citizens do not necessarily have to run for political positions, but they should stay woke and make their voices heard. That's my contribution today. Thank you.
Thank you for that voice note. Caller, your life, good morning. Thank you for your patience.
Yes, good morning to everybody. Now, Mr. Amsterdam, with this thing that the PPP, the regime might try to do, the gerrymandering thing. If you are a true country person, you can't live in nasty Georgetown. Because let me tell you, see, I sent you some pictures this morning. I am at bay because they mean the pork garden gone. And people from Region 6, they are accustomed to planting they got the farmlands, they rear cattle, they got cash crop, they got the rice crop. And those people coming from those areas, for the first, the life in town going to be attractive to them. They might enjoy it for a while. But when they can't go, within 6 weeks,
and pick up truckload of okra, borrow shallot, what's the evergreens, and after 3 to 4 months, reap a set of rice and send it out as cargo rice, and so they ain't gonna neighbor with it. Lots of those people in the country areas, as I would call it, you got your kitchen garden, you got 2 sheep, you got goat, you got fowl. Right now, me fowls and the thing are dying out because of the flood. So, will the PPP be able to get money from wherever to be paying these people an income of what they will lose running to live in Georgetown just for the purpose of voting? I want to see them. I know of many persons who had lands in the country, that is a country like where you live in, BUXTONIAN, where I live in, sell out and gone to town, and where they live in the slum areas of town, because they can't make it to the suburbs of Georgetown. When you're going to see them, 2 and 3 family living in a small place because they can't pay the rent. So let those people take the PPP ignorance and run to town just for the purpose of voting. And they're going to see what they're going to lose, because they're going to lose big. And by the time they have to catch yourself to go back, you see how Guyana getting a lot of foreigners come? The same PPP will sell out the place to the foreigners at next to nothing and got them trapped in Georgetown, and they can't go nowhere. Me saying too much about GECOM. We got to play out, wait and see. Because GECOM asks people with experience. People would say that I shouldn't say that. Go cool Boodoo with all his atrocities reapplied to GECOM, and this man Lowenfield and Myers, they were not brought in guilty of any offense that the PPP claimed that they committed. That is why I sorry I didn't do law, because a proper lawyer should have instructed Lowenfield and Myers and all the people who GECOM said the thing to action GECOM for big money, because they have played with those people's character. They have played with it. And now when they play with the people's character, they put them on sideline. They don't have nothing guilty. So their reputation, it is unstable. And if you find fault with a person, with a job, you should not be able to put up a vacancy for the person, because they carry these people to court. They can't prove no case. So how come you can't meet the court for cussing up on the job? And because you can't meet the court for cussing up on the job, you can't prove me guilty. So how in the name of blazes my job has become a vacant position, because and you can't prove what I do to make my job vacant. So in Guyana, there's a lot of things going on with the judicial system, and people have got to know what's going on. When you're in certain positions, get a knowledge of what is your rights. And once your rights is being trampled upon, you don't walk away and give it up as a fool. And I think that job vacancy that GECOM claiming they don't have a vacancy, because the people who were in those positions have not committed anything as against the contraindications of the job. Therefore, GECOM, if they had found Mr. Lowenfield and the others guilty, and because of your guiltiness, you're a felon, you cannot work, then the job becomes vacant. That is my thing today.
Thank you. Voice note.
Yeah, Baba.
Good morning, my dear brother. North and South Rumvelt is flooding. The water continues to roll in, pouring Morning, Brother Kadaki. North and South Rumvelt is flooding. I am just hoping that it doesn't come up like in 2005. I'm watching it. I'm sitting and watching it flowing in my yard. The streets are full. Gutters, alleyways are toppling over. So this is the situation so far from my view of where I'm living. Concerning the situation arising from GECOM and some of the political issues, the opposition don't think it wise that they should take the streets. They think it's old-fashioned, so to speak. But I wonder if they're seeing what is happening in Europe. Tens of thousands of people on the streets. Right now it's in connection with the COVID and the Omicron. But in general, they hit the streets for wages increase, salary increase. Whatever affects them, they get on the streets. And this is not only what is in the news, this is facts. This is facts, I know. I was there at one time when thousands of the unions, all the unions comes out. They make no bones about it when it comes to their rights. And so far, we Guyanese are continuously sleeping, not waking up to the realities of what is happening to the African people, to the poorer class of the people. We continue to be trampled on. I don't know what else, Brother Kadaki, that you haven't said, Dr. Hines haven't said, and others haven't been saying. But we are not waking up, we are still in.
Caller Live, good morning. Thank you for holding.
Hello?
Thank you for holding. Good morning, you're live.
Good morning. Good morning, all. I was going to kind of ask a question, make a statement and an extension of the question, but you answered it like about 3 calls ago in regards to the decision making with GECOM. Anyhow, I'm going to extend a little bit on it. If the both parties have three commissioners for voting within the system, within the GECOM system for decision making, and the chairman comes as the 7th person who will break ties or whatever. But in this case here now, we see, of course, they have the 2 parties have the 3 commissioners each, and then there's a chairman. But the chairman, in this case, who's leaning so much left to this particular party and making the decisions with this particular party, namely the ruling party in government right about now. It's a no-brainer that how she would vote when it comes up to decision making. So what about if the coalition, the opposition is not satisfied because it's her being in a compromised situation with the other party, with the leading party? What could they do? Could they not take it to court maybe a few code, maybe the CCG or whatever, and get a fair results about it. That's one of the things that I wanted to ask first in regards to if there's anything that the opposition party could actually do, because they know how the vote will go, and they know it will go one-sided, and it is clear for everyone to see. So I would like to know if the opposition can make an application towards the court if this decision do go that way. And finally, I want to mention about Ms. Rwanda just talk about the people, the PEP gerrymandering and bringing the people from Region 6 to Region 4. But I wanted to not depend really on put our head on the night for this, because the thing is that these people, given these Region 6 people, given house lots in Region 4 to come over and get residency in Region 4, it doesn't mean that they're going to relinquish everything that they have in Region 6. It just means that they will be registered under two different sets, two regions in terms of residency, right? So I mean, this may not be legal, but knowing the corrupt nature of Guyana, that's what's going to happen. So these people will just come over and register the land in Region 4, just to show that they are registrants in Region 4. They have residency in Region 4, and they will keep whatever land or whatever property they have in Region 6. So let her. So I rather don't think that these people won't do that, because we know how Guyana runs. We know how corrupt it is, and that is not legal, but that's exactly what's going to happen. They will live in two regions. Thank you, Mr. Amsterdam.
Thank you, caller. And thank you for making that point. I was waiting for the opportune time to say to Rhonda, first and foremost, the people who will be moving out of the Region 6 and so on are the new generation. The new generation are not necessarily rice farmers and farmers. They may be children of rice farmers and grandchildren of rice farmers and farmers. And so they're living off of that quote-unquote wealth. And some of them would be bold enough to come to these parts and to try to extend their family's holdings. And so some of them will happily come these sides and use whatever wealth they have already acquired or their ancestors have already acquired to break new grounds, if I can call it that. So don't tell yourself that, hey, these are rice farmers and farmers who will be coming here. It is this generation, the younger ones, who will very much enjoy the bright lights, right? And in many instances are perhaps prepared for the bright lights, because they have moved from a place of just being farmers. They've become doctors, and they've become lawyers, and they've become much more educated than their predecessors, right? And that is one of the things I was saying to you yesterday. The haves will use what they have to ensure that they remain in control for a long time, because those who were once referred to as rice farmers and manual laborers and so on are being given resources that they can use to change the fortunes of their next generation, while your next generation is being subjugated because you are not being given the resources, nor do you have the access to the resources. These are the things we have to think about. 6225933 is the number to call. Lines remain open. Voice note.
Good morning to you, Mr. Amsterdam. Mr. Amsterdam, let me tell you, most of these things that are happening right now could only be fixed if the right person gets the leadership position after the Congress. The leaders that we have there right now, they are toothless. They're not fighting for anything. Mr. Armand, I don't know what this man tell himself. He feel that people are obligated to him. You notice when even Dr. Hines invite him on his program, Mark, and so he got a problem coming on the program, and he's doing as if he put himself there. Our votes make they get opposition position, and all of them could go into parliament. And we are saying we need him out of there. The sooner he realizes that nobody wants him, it's better he and Mr. Granger, they have everything going wrong right now. As you can see, it is because of them. They need to remove themselves from there and let people get to move on with their lives, because people are suffering, people are dying. We need them out of there. Thank you. Mr. Amsterdam, I don't know if you got the one with the chairperson, but I'm saying it again. The chairperson of GECOM is compromised and she needs to be moved from there. Somebody got to do something to remove her. She's not neutral. She's always voting with the government side for everything. Nobody can see that. Even the blind, I think, could see that.
Voice note.
Good morning, Mr. Kadaki. GECOM is in a mess. Claudette Singh, she's not really the chairman. She is the 7th PPP GECOM commissioner. She votes all the time with the PPP commissioner. She does not vote sometimes with the opposition commissioner and sometimes with the PPP commissioner. She always votes with the PPP commissioner. So therefore, whatever is happening at GECOM, she is responsible for it. She is responsible for it. Is that woman have the country as what is going on there? Because she was not following the law and she was supposed to be an ex-judge. She was doing what the PPP wanted her to do. She should be fired as GECOM chairman and replaced with somebody that is not partisan.
Who will fire her? That's the question. The PPP is not going to fire somebody that's favorable to them. And like I said, for you to remove a commissioner from GECOM and the chairman, you will have to prove gross misconduct in public office. I am sure there is some constitutional body that you will have to go to do that investigation. As a matter of fact, my belief is that any investigation will have to be ordered by the Prime Minister, who bears responsibility for the operation of commissions, if I am remembering clearly. Because I get him big, just forget one and two things, right? But the fact is, it's like trying the devil's case in hell, right? I am the government. This woman is favorable to me. I'm not going to remove her, regardless of what you say. Even if you tell yourself you can prove gross misconduct, like the PPP government used to say in the past, bring the evidence. And when you bring it, they don't see it. Your evidence, your interpretation of the evidence is different to theirs. Who removing Claudette? In terms of the other commissioners, like I'm saying again, I am of the belief that once you've been appointed a commissioner of GECOM, it's an appointment for life. You're removed from there by death or resignation, right? Or some other incapacity, right? Incapacity. So far, I don't know any of the 6 commissioners are incapacitated. And so you can remove them for that incapacity. So far, I don't know any of them would like to resign. Right? And put me in their place the question I am asking. Will you resign from an appointment for life if you're guaranteed your income, for example? I don't know many people would do it. Some people rest and live on principle. But principles in the minds of some people don't put food on the table. And when you are at a certain station in life, you don't want to be wondering where your next meal will come from. And so for many, giving up that job at GECOM might be, as a commissioner, might be giving up your meal ticket. I am a realist. I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but I am reading the situation as I see it. The lines remain open. 6225933 is the number to call. How come they removed Mr. Lowenfield? Because Mr. Lowenfield was hired by the commission. He's not the commission. Right? There's a commission, there's this commission's secretariat. Right? People who work in this secretariat can be dismissed. Not the commission. And people do not generally make that differentiation. The commission are those people who sit there on Fridays mostly. 6 commissioners and a chairman. That makes up the election commission. Everybody else constitutes the secretariat or the support staff of the commission. Right? If a McPherson wants to know what their salaries look like, ask by Jack Dio. He knows. I'm sure I heard him read it out before. And these things are supposed to be in the public, because they are paid by the public purse. And so citizens have a right to know what they are paid. But don't ask me, I don't know. Oh Lord. It's now 80 minutes to the 9 o'clock hour. 6225933 is the number to call. I think there's another voice note here.
Good morning, Mr. Kadaki. I didn't catch the show from the top this morning. I usually catch it, but I kind of oversleep, rain falling. But it's strange. Today is supposed to be GECOM swearing in or elected. Yesterday, tomorrow was supposed to be the Congress voting, vice versa, but it canceled, right? And I asked a question the other day, but Mr. Harmon, a video was circulated, and how I understand the language of Joseph Harmon, that he said, I don't know if I read it wrong, he said that regardless of what happened in the Congress, he is the leader for the opposition according to the Constitution, right? He is the leader for the Congress until the next election, that's 2025. So regardless who's the vote, I don't know if I'm wrong, I'm asking for explanation. Regardless of who they vote in, he ain't got no way. According to how I understand it. But we're dealing with two countries, the same thing. 50-50 and a tie vote. The Vice President of the United States of America. And who's America for tell people? Who is America to tell anybody but do the right thing and what's the word? And Constitution and democratic. Look what happened the last election in America. And if any Guyanese, I must say this, if any Guyanese abroad or in Guyana believe that Joe Biden win the 2020 election, they have to believe that David Arthur Ranger had win the election in Guyana, the last election, 2019 or whenever it is. It's so confusing right now, you can't even remember. We have to believe that Ranger win. If you believe Joe Biden win. Joe Biden beat Obama, a two-time president. He beat Kennedy, he beat everybody, he had the highest votes in America. History. And the guy can't even remember Monday to Sunday. Exactly. Leaders around the world saying that before he tried to read the teleprompter, he best he turn it around like we read. Those were coming out to Europe. So we can see what happened with the vote, The Jamaican, the Guyanese, That's where you're going to end up to. And now how are we going to end up again? Black Indian. Black Indian. Like in America, white man, black man. And the white man keep telling the black man that preaching racism. So I don't know where we there in, boss. We there in a strange world. God bless.
Caller, thank you for holding your life.
Yeah, Mr.
Yes, caller.
Yeah, Mr. My comments about GECOM, GECOM is already compromised with Ms. Gladys Singh. And next thing with the opposition, I don't know why Mr. Harman is running for leadership because Mr. Harman already failed the nation. And Mr. Harman going on like these people in the government, them just have a one-seat majority, and he's supposed to stand up to this government. And he already failed the nation. I don't know why he should resign and don't run for, say that he's running for PNC leadership. Because what he going to do? He already failed the nation. And I think that when Congress comes, these people should make the right choice and make the decision to let somebody go in there who will move this country forward and take on this installed regime. Because I don't know what Mr. Harman doing. Maybe he's a showman or step on a different level. He don't really have the people interest at all. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me explain the situation with Mr. Harman and the statement about leader of the opposition. And I'm happy when we do these programs because I tell you the truth. I think part of the problem in this country is a lack of education on the part of citizens. A lot of citizens do not even understand the electoral and other processes in this country. Just as a lot of party members of the PNC currently do not understand their party processes. Anyways, I don't show shades. Let me explain this to you. Every political party which is contesting the election has to submit a list of candidates. That list of candidates has what you call a leader of the list, the representative of the list. In other words, anything that is wrong with that list, GECOM deals with that person on the list. When it comes to extracting names from that list for parliament, etc., GECOM deals with that person, the representative of the list, because it's convenient. You can't deal with everybody on a list. So the representative of the list has the final say about the list. Now the representative of the list will select the parliamentarians, like Granger selected the parliamentarians. Once the parliamentarians attend the first sitting of parliament, a lot of constitutional positions are filled by votes in most times. Mr. Harman has been voted as the leader of the opposition. And him being voted as leader of the opposition is a constitutional position. He was voted there by his parliamentarians. So he is leader of the opposition. For you to remove Harman as leader of the opposition, there are some things which I believe will have to happen. Forget Congress, forget the leader of the PNC. Because as a matter of fact, the leader of the PNC is not the leader of the opposition currently. The PNC did not contest the elections by itself. A coalition contested the election, a coalition named APNU-AFC. And so Harman is in parliament representing APNU-AFC as the leader of the opposition. So when the leader of the PNC changes, it doesn't mean that the leader of the APNU-AFC has changed, or the representative of the APNU-AFC has changed in parliament. And so if Harman is saying that I will remain leader of the opposition regardless of who wins the Congress, it's an accurate statement. If you don't want him as leader of the opposition, then my thing is that there will have to be some amount of negotiation and horse trading between the PNC, between Granger, who is the leader of the list, and among the members of the APNU, AFC. And quite frankly, as far as I know, the APNU AFC doesn't exist. Right now it's like PNC AFC. Because WPA was one of the founding members of the APNU with the PNC. WPA has left the APNU. Justice for All was part of the APNU. Justice for All has left the APNU. Keith Scott is a part, whatever his party's name, GEP is a part of the APNU, and those parties are either dormant, have disappeared, or simply left the APNU. So in this whole coalition construct of APNU AFC, what really exists for you to see, or what is really visible, is the PNC AFC. And so it might be a hell of a thing, especially if they don't want it to be so, to remove Harman as leader of the opposition. So he may not be leader of the PNC, but he is a representative in parliament of the APNU AFC, which contested the election. That's what you have to understand. And so when he says, I will remain the leader of the opposition, it's not an untruth. For how long is going to be dependent on a lot of what is happening in the back rooms. It's now 8 hours 52. We have 8 minutes to the 9 o'clock hour. We can take another call or two. The lines remain open. 622-5933 is the number to call. I wonder when public servants going to get the 8%, the 7%. When is the 7% paying? Y'all remember, you got paid tithes. 1/10 of the 7% to KAMS. Hey, hola.
Good morning, Mr. Kadaki and your viewers. I believe the Guyanese should stand their ground and vote for the person that qualify to get the job. And according to Mr. Duncan in the show last night, I was listening, Claudette Swing is getting $3 million a month. $3 million a month. And she is not being fair with her job. It's a very sad situation in Guyana. And it's time Guyanese stand up. It's time Guyanese stand up. And I think Mr. Norton is a stronger leader to lead the coalition out of this situation that they're in. Not Mr. Harman. Mr. Harman is not doing enough. So Guyanese, open your eyes, see what's going on every day, Ms. Kadaki. Preaching it on the air, Mr. Hines, Mark Benchop, Rickford Burke, Gavin Matthews. These people telling y'all what is going on, and y'all should open your eyes and get the country moving forward. That is my take for today. Bye.
Vice Note.
Thank you for explaining that. I gotta understand it. Appreciate that.
The lines are open. 622-5933 is the number to call. You know, everybody asking what should be done and who should be gotten rid of and so on. I want to remind you of something. Call you live. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Kadaki. Good morning, all the viewers around the world. One thing I have to say, Mr. Harman should really back off from this position that we have. All right, because is him that we really they cause us in this situation in Ghana presently now. Back and forth with the Congress and all kind of thing, and next thing you know, the other guy went and talked, see, but I know room and all kind of thing. These is things that is saying the opposition, the ruling party inside there now, saying to distract. It's for distraction going on with them. That's why you use our say Moro Malinga, kind of distracting the party so that they can't really focus what's going on. That is what's going on. All right? Claudette saying she that day now. What happened, you find what happened if she got removed from the Ghana state, she cannot remove, or they can't get you out from there. Ghana will be the same. You understand what I'm saying? The honest thing now, the new leader who will be there from the opposition side now, as they're trying to get Mr. Bobby Norton, I feel he's a good man for that position. And I feel he should get the position and get a break and take people out of the destruction that's going on in Guyana presently now. That's what I'm saying? And that's what I have to say this morning.
Thank you, caller. I keep referring, in the earlys, not so long ago, I keep telling you guys, I love to read. I don't read as much as I read as a youngster. But as a youngster, one of my favorite books, I always like to refer to that book, Kings of Cocaine. And in recent times, I came to love the television series, the blockbuster series, if you call it that, Queen of the South. Right? Because both of those pieces of art has so much to share, so much to teach in terms of how you deal with power. Right? How you deal with power. Caller Live, good morning.
Hi, Kadaki, good morning. You explained the situation there with Harmon, but I'm a little confused. I think Harmon said before that in the past, the party leader and the opposition leader were one of the same. Assuming that due to some devilish luck, Mr. Harmon becomes the leader now, what would become of the leader of the opposition? Is he going to assume the leadership of the party and opposition leader at the same time?
Yes.
That's if he becomes the leader from this Congress here?
Yes.
Oh.
And let me explain this to you. In the past, the leader of the opposition and the PNC was one because the PNC contested as one. The PNC contested as the PNC. So the leader of the PNC, take for example, when it was Robert Corbyn contested alone. Or the PNC contested by itself. Or PNCR. Robert Corbyn was the leader of the PNCR. And when they lost the election, he was also leader of the opposition. So they were one and the same. In this instance, the PNC did not contest the election by itself. The APNU contested the election, of which the PNC was a part. So Harmon in Parliament is representing not necessarily the PNC, but the APNU.
Okay.
Right. But everybody shifts the goalposts to suit themselves. I think the first statement by Harmon was saying basically, I will win the leader of the PNC. And so I believe the leader of the PNC and the leader of the opposition should be the one and same because I will win, I will be the leader anyhow. But if it appears now that he's going to lose the leadership race, he's just making it clear that if I lose the leadership race, you still can't move me from Parliament. Because I don't represent y'all in Parliament. I represent the APNU. Y'all think about that. Think on that.
Well, guess what? We are going to move a no confidence vote against him.
Caller, that is what you would like to happen. There's no guarantee that it will happen. Have a good day.
Too much explanation. It's time for action.
Based on his position right now, because when he thought he would be winning was one thing.
Listen, people are always shifting goalposts. Right? Especially if you have and you can control the sport and the rules. Right? It's as simple as that.
Well, we'll have to get him out.
Good. Have a great day.
Bye.
Everybody likes to shift goalposts.
Good morning, Kadaki. Good morning, viewers. I think that the opposition should wake up. Let's fight a good fight. God is looking down on us, and on our knees we are begging. He will soon come one day.
But let the PPP don't sit down and think that they're dead on there and do stupidness. This go wrong a cat piss and pepper. Trust me.
Sister Denise said, trust in God, He gonna bring changes someday. You know, I always believe that faith without works ain't making sense. You gotta put in the work. Let me I was saying to you, through my readings and my love for movies and so on, I've come to admire what I consider two great pieces of work. One is like a biography of the kingpin, leader of the Medellin cartel. What was his name? Anyhow, Kings of Cocaine. That's the book. It has a lot of lessons in there as to how people dealt with power and how people dealt with situations that they did not like. Right? Fast forward to modern day. There was this wonderful series, and perhaps still is, Queen of the South. I love it because it shows how an underdog rose to the top to become in control and rule the roost in the criminal underworld, if I can call it that. But it has lessons in terms of how you deal with power and how you manage power and how you manage situations, how you take control and change your fortunes. And so when everybody asking how you're going to do this and how you're going to do that, and the chairman should be removed, and you all read a little more, watch a little more movie and so on. Expand your horizon. And as I'm talking about that, I reflected on the fact, do you remember there was a point a time in India when any member of the Gandhi family that stepped forward for leadership was assassinated? How many assassinations have the Gandhis suffered in the history of India? I remember Indira, I remember Ranjiv, certainly Mahatma. How many other Gandhis were assassinated? Or how many of them were made to flee to remain safe? Because the Indians had become really, really fed up of them, if I can say that. History has taught us several lessons. History continues to teach us. It is as if some of us are willing to take the lessons of history. Coffee taught us what to do. When the enslavers were more than overdoing it, Coffee waged rebellion. And while many said it failed, information is present and is being translated and released now to show that he actually controlled the territory for more than a year, which makes that successful to me. Keep that in mind. I said the program is finished. Why are you calling back? I give you 1 minute. Call A Live.
To see it, right? I call it. What you say is true about the Gandhis. It's true what you say. I could remember when I was small, I was following what happened to them, how they flee and they assassinate the whole of them. All right? What you're saying is true. That's my take. That's my take, Mr. Kadaki.
Thank you. What we want in this country is what Richie Spice is dictating. Some Gideon boots. Have a good day, y'all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, nah, nah. Gideon boot and a khaki suit. Mr. Nothing a Babylon and represent the truth. Me nah go see a road and see bad things and keep me mouth from mute. I got a strong reggae beat with a mic in a me hand. To lead out the youth about a destruction and tell the people they should know. Right from wrong. We got the strength, we got the power to help each other up the ladder. Don't be selfish to help your brothers today. We can make it if we try. Just remember to hold your head high. It doesn't make sense when we fuss and fight. I need a Gideon boot and a khaki suit. We stand out in the Babylon and defend the truth. Me nah go sit aside and watch Babylon and keep me mouth from mute. I've got a strong reggae beat and a mic in my hand. We lead out the youth them out of destruction and let the people know right from wrong. All who believe in love will get a blessing from above. No. Give a night to the poor class, I say, yeah. Got to let the people know the right from the wrong. They are depending on you to lead the way, yeah. People just be wise, believe in yourself. The future generation depends on you. Show a little love in your heart and let the people know there's more to life. I need a Gideon boot and a khaki suit. We stand up in the Babylon and defend the truth. Me nah go sit aside and watch Babylon and keep me mouth from mute. I've got a strong reggae beat and a mic in my hand. We lead out the youth them out of destruction and let the people know right from wrong. All who believe in love will get a blessing from above. And all who believe in love, all who believe in love will get a blessing from above. And all who believe in love. Hey, think about the hungry, think about the naked one. Think about the fatherless and the motherless. Think about the gun you send out coming back at you. Whoa, yeah. Hey, think about the next generation to come. I need a Gideon boot and a khaki suit. We stand up in the Babylon and represent the truth. Alright, I know me now go stand alone and keep me mouth from you. I need a thing where they beat with a mic in my hand.